My name is Daniela Herrera. I am the chair of the ECPR and also chair of the Hedley Bull Prize jury. The prize is awarded annually for a book which makes a substantial and original contribution to theory or empirical studies in any field of international relations. It is named in honor of Hedley Bull for celebrating his seminal contribution to the field of international relations, as widely acknowledged by scholars around the world. Eligible nominations have been reviewed by a jury comprised of Laura N. Viola and Eugenia Baroncelli, representing the Standing Group on International Relations, Randall Pulek-Shank, representing the Standing Group on Critical Peace and Conflict Studies, Saira Vandenberg, representing the Standing Group on Human Rights and Transitional Justice, James Pattison, representing the Standing Group on International Political Theory, and myself. This year, the jury has decided to award Lachlan McNamee for his book, Settling for Less, Why States Colonize and Why They Stop, published by Princeton University Press this year in 2024, and we are very happy to award. In the book, Lachlan focuses on the reasons and factors that drive the settlement policies of many states, resulting in a displacement and suffering of indigenous peoples. He examines the internal dynamics of settler colonialism and the declining power of colonizers in a rapidly urbanizing world. The jury praised McNamee's book for deepening an issue that has been overlooked in the international relations debate and for offering a combination of refreshing and innovative theoretical reflections on the problem of decolonization and settlement, and insightful and detailed case studies from different regions. We are very happy about the award this year. And now I pass to Jacob, who is the nominator.
Thank you very much, Daniela. I was very happy to get to nominate Lachlan's book. It's obviously an incredibly important topic, and it's one that has shaped nations and states, civilizations, even at the micro level, the lives of hundreds of millions of people. So why do states colonize? And why do they stop? So Lachlan's answer, I think, adds a lot of nuance to this question. So instead of approaching it simply as a straightforward top-down process, Lachlan also emphasized the agencies of settlers themselves. And I think one of the really illuminating propositions of Lachlan's book is simply that the one necessary condition for settler colonization is willing settlers. If settlers are not willing to relocate to remote peripheries, settler colonization is hard. And the implication of that basic but very strong, I think, assumption is that, well, as countries develop with modernization, with economic development, well, the hub of economic activity moves from resource-rich remote peripheries to urban centers. So in that sense, as countries become economically developed, the structural conditions for settler colonizations are slowly eroded. And that's a simple and very, very strong proposition. The way it's presented in the book is very convincing. So Lachlan skillfully weaves together cross-country econometrics. He dives into micro studies using both parliamentary debates, using microdata on demographic compositions. And all of that is just handled with such ease that the book reads like a novel. So it's in short, it's a book that deals with a very important topic, one that does so with theoretical nuance, one that does so with bringing together a ton of different sources of data and empirical methods. And then lastly, in a way that's just, it reads like a novel. So very well deserved. And with that, I give the word to you, Lachlan. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, both of you, for your kind words, and to the ECPR for this great honor to have my name attached to Hedley Bull, the kind of great Australian IR scholar of the 20th century is crazy. And yeah, I'm just really pleased that I guess that what I was attempting to do with this book really came through to the reader, the intended read and intended audience, like you both, and to the committee and just to the political science community generally. Because as you said, I really focused on a phenomenon, settler colonialism, that hadn't received a lot of attention in mainstream political science and international relations. There's been a lot of work in kind of settler colonial studies, but the book is quite critical of this because it's really that body of literature focusing on theorizing kind of settler colonialism has really focused on Australasia and the United States, and to a lesser extent Israel. But one of the things I was really trying to do with the book is think about colonization as this practice, this kind of moving people, enticing people to contested frontiers and displacing the pre-existing population. It's something that predated the kind of classical European settlement projects of the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, because Machiavelli talks about this in The Prince as something that a prince should do, and it really originated much earlier than Machiavelli, with the Assyrians really are the first kind of case where what we would think of as a kind of a program of displacement and replacing people was kind of first recorded. And we see these kind of displacement projects happening around the world today in places like West Papua, which is right on my doorstep in Australia, which is just this month the Indonesian government announced the resumption of this transmigration program, which is the world's largest voluntary migration program over the 20th century, and involved the resettlement of about 5 million people to Indonesia's outer islands, and was often extremely violent and displaced many people, but received very little attention from scholars because this trying to theorize what does it mean for a decolonial state or a post-colonial state like Indonesia to kind of displace people in a way that seems highly colonial. So I'm trying to bring all these cases together and think about settler colonization as a practice that all states do, and think about why they do that and why, if ever, do they stop. And as you kind of pointed to, Jacob, the other thing I tried to really do with the book is highlight that to understand this practice of displacement and colonization, we have to understand the interests of people on the ground, not just the kind of bureaucrats far off in London or in Paris, but really the people on the ground, and what do they want, and how are their interests and intentions aligned with those bureaucrats in the center. And the kind of key dynamic that I point to in the book is that as states grow richer, this conflict of interest between people on the ground in the frontier and people in the center really gets worse and worse. The people in the center may want to keep expanding, moving people to new contested frontiers, but with the emergence of major cities, it's increasingly hard to get people to do that. And so that's really the story I tell about why Indonesia ended up with such facility colonizing West Papua over the 20th century, moving hundreds of thousands of people there. And as I mentioned just before, is resuming this program as of next month. Whereas Australia tried to do the same thing in the next door province of Papua New Guinea, which was an Australian colony for over 70 years, really tried to get a lot of white people to move there, offering free land and all these other incentives, but struggled to get people to move there because Sydney and Melbourne were such draws for settlers. And so really the failed colonization program in Papua New Guinea is what created the foundations for Papua New Guineans to ultimately claim kind of independence. So in some ways, I'm trying to to kind of bring an area of the world in like New Guinea or Xinjiang that's or Central Asia that's not really, hasn't really been central to understanding of international relations, which is, heavily focused on the North Atlantic. But I'm trying to bring, this area of the world into understanding of much broader phenomena, right? This relationship between economic change and political change, between modernization and colonization and decolonization, and show that how places like New Guinea tell us much more fundamental things about the kind of broader phenomenon around the world, and how Marxist predictions that, that as states grow richer, that the world will ultimately be divided into a few empires was actually completely wrong. In fact, we see poorer states being much more effective colonizers and rich states being really ineffective colonizers. So yeah, that's what I'm working on for the kind of next book, as well as part 2, the sequel, thinking about from perspective of decolonization, what happens when states are no longer able to colonize. When do they push for frontier areas to become independent? When do they grant citizenship to people in those frontiers? And when states do grant citizenship to people in the frontiers, like France did to New Caledonia in the 1940s, and to most of its overseas territories, when does that kind of quash demands for independence, as we really see in places like Guadeloupe, Martinique, Guyana, Mayotte? Independence really isn't something that's being demanded by indigenous peoples, but you do see in places like New Caledonia, where I am right now, that there's still this really active independence movement, despite it being, despite people here having kind of formal equality with other French citizens. So watch this space. That's what I'll be working on for kind of the next book. But thanks again to everyone, and I'm just delighted that you enjoyed it.
Well, let me congratulate Lachlan again for its achievement, and also Jacob for nominating this fantastic book. The jury has been impressed by all the amazing submissions that have been received. At this point, let me thank again and say that I'm grateful to all participants to this exciting competition, to the members of the jury for their work and efforts and dedication, and obviously to the ECPR staff for their usually great support. And obviously we look forward to the 2025 competition. Thank you.